And yet again, I am going to trespass on the territory of the world building that I'm going to visit after the protagonist era is over, loosely carrying on from the luck and contrivances that I have mentioned previously, with something that I'll have to definitely look out for, and that's the protagonist only ever finding items and people, connections and events that are crucial for the continuation of the story. Basically, just leaving a trail of breadcrumbs behind for the protagonist to follow. A path that me, the writer, creates and the character just obeys, pretty much always serving the protagonist what he will need for the next room, or in game terms, next boss will be a fire type, so right before encountering him, the protagonist magically gets an item that grants fire resistance. It would be like solving a puzzle, but instead of all the pieces being randomly strewn around, they are all laid in line and also numbered. The ideal would be to create a story where every single tiny piece, every single encounter, every single character and item has some meaning. Not exactly crucial to reaching some grand ultimate goal, maybe here and there just expanding on some background information, not always leading to the next scenario, but also being balanced in a way when these wouldn't feel like fillers, wasted words that in reality give the reader nothing of substance. It's probably the balance between the main storyline and side quests. Maybe it wouldn't be too bad to have a protagonist who's solely focused on a singular goal and thus chooses to ignore the distractions that might be interfering with him reaching the goal. But even in that case, I think I would be more inclined to enjoy such story if it was here and there sprinkled with small bits and pieces that might be inconsequential to the main objective, and yet they would retain enough meaning to justify their inclusion in the story. It is again something that will require balance and careful planning and filtering of entire parts of the story, because otherwise I would just end up with something that I would either not enjoy and then not read at all, or I would end up skipping certain sections, which is definitely not what I'm aiming for when I am trying to write a story. And speaking of stories, last time Yindra ran, well, for his life and the existence of the next Rapid Arrow story, because he had to send Mr. Yaroslav Foglar, his own author, notes regarding their latest adventures so that he can be written and continued. And in their next adventure, they hear some screams from the fountain, and when they arrive, they find a small child who lost his ball in the fountain, and it's the Rapid Arrow's task to retrieve it. First attempt is made by Speedy, leaning far into the fountain with the rest of the boys holding him so that he won't fall inside. But as he informs the rest of the club in rhymes, he's way too short to reach the ball, or, well, can't lean far enough without getting wet, with the brat first laughing at Speedy earning his ire, and then screaming that he really wants his ball back. This time even Redcap almost reaching the boiling point, threatening to throw the child into the fountain so that he can retrieve his ball by himself. But then a spark of inspiration hits Yarka, and with an exclamation that only his sharp and practical mind could ever come up with a plan this sophisticated, the boys will form a line, this rope, holding hands. Fourth member will be standing on the rim of the fountain, and the fifth one will be held by the combined power of the four and will be able to lean much deeper and further into the fountain to finally accomplish the task of retrieving the ball. At least in theory. Indra ends up being the person on the edge, and Speedy again is the one leading further beyond. Of course, then a catastrophe happens. Indra, sensing the imminent disaster, asks for a scaphandar before he succumbs to the force of gravity and follows Speedy into the depths with the little boy shouting at them to grab the ball when they are already there. And after they emerge, they thank Yarka for his sophisticated plan, and when walking past an old man, he starts chuckling and checks for any signs of rain since the boys are slightly wet. Next one we see Yarka warning a bunch of kids hanging around this makeshift carriage, currently standing still, that they should be careful around it, otherwise it might get moving. And the only boy sitting on the driver's seat, quite full of himself, tells him to sod off, that it's theirs and that they can do whatever they want with it. And to demonstrate it, he releases the brake. The three girls that are on the carriage start panicking since it starts moving, and the boy, instead of trying to stop it properly, jumps off holding onto the back of the carriage and tries to stop it with his heels, which obviously doesn't work. And he falls off and just shouts at the girls to try to use the brake to stop it properly this time. One of the girls can't take it anymore and decides to jump off before something worse happens. She falls to the ground and stops moving. People around rush to her. One lady starts going on how it's over for her, and an old man says that it's probably just unconsciousness and that the girls that are still on the carriage will probably face much worse fate unless someone saves them. The rabbit arrows notice the imminent tragedy and split up. Four of them will rescue some kids that are playing in front of a wall that the carriage is going towards, and Mirek will try to jump on the carriage and stop it before it hits the wall, since two girls are still on there. They manage to carry away the kids playing in the sandbox in front of the wall, and Mirek, in the nick of time, manages to stop the carriage with the brake, and with this happy ending reached, they receive thanks from the girls that were still left on the moving vehicle, and congratulations from all the onlookers, and even the girl that jumped right at the beginning turns out to be fine, just some small bruises, and all ends well. Now we see Speedy bringing his father to the railway station where he works some simple yet delicious meal. When the delivery is complete, they are allowed to check the station out, noting how large it is and how easy it would be to even get lost. They notice a wagon that's open, full of an enchanting smell, and they decide to explore, obviously with no ill intentions. But then Mirek notices that someone's coming and they decide to hide, panicking on spot as well kids would. So instead of being discovered, the railway employee wonders who left the wagon open, closes it, and before the boys can even do anything, the train starts moving and the doors are this time properly locked. Speedy tries to use the emergency brake that's just there on the wall of the wagon, and it takes Yarka with a swift verbal smack, telling him that it's a chain for cattle. It's already been a few hours, and finally they feel the train slowing down a bit, and they notice that someone's opening the door. Some are elated that they are going to finally get rescued, while Yindra is skeptical and they decide to hide again, only for two quite suspicious, fishy looking guys to jump on board of the moving train. I'm going to stop here for today. I will continue in the next one. I have some more things to say, more quote unquote great ideas about protagonists and how I would like to write them, and then more adventures of the Rapid Arrows Club, starting with the railway one getting a proper resolution.